Hi, Jeff Burns again. Welcome back. And I'm about to share with you the story of why I no longer hate Muslims and how God used a little Muslim boy in my life to completely turn my heart around. The story I'm about to share with you has been shared in synagogues, it's been shared in mosques, it's been shared in churches. I've been flown across the country, even in other countries around the world. I have told this story, and for some reason, many people find hope from it. So it's not just a Christian story, it's a story for Muslims, it's a story for Jews, it's a story for people around anyone of good faith. And in many ways, although I'm a Christian and claim to be a follower of Christ, this story reflects a kind of a conversion that I had to go through. And I tell people that in many ways it's kind of like Saul on the road to Damascus. Remember, Saul was on the road to Damascus. He hated Christians. He was hell-bent against destroy them. And Jesus confronts him on the road and knocks him off his high horse, and he completely turns around. Well, in many ways, God had to knock me off my high horse and reminded me that although I'm claiming to be a Christian, when it came to Muslims, I was not a Christian. So I'm going to share that story with you, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you would rather read the story, it's also on my blog, and one of my blog entries, so you can do that too and pass it on. Feel free to do that. But prior to 2005, I would have to say I hated Muslims. Now, I would not have used that language. No Christian minister would say I hate anyone. You know, if they did, that would just be scandalous. But I hated Muslims. I didn't like them. I despised them in my heart. I said horrible things from the pulpit against Muslims, and I wanted nothing to do with them. And I won't even repeat some of the horrible things I said and things that I felt in my heart. For years, I had great shame over this, and now God has healed that, and I have nothing but great love. But I hated Muslims and wanted nothing to do with them. And then, after being a minister for 18 years, I remember it was December of 2004. I was sitting in my study, and I was reflecting on the next phase of my life, and I got an email one day, and it said, we would like for you to attend a 3-month class in Cary, North Carolina. It's at a church, and it's going to be a study of Islam, about Islam. This is 3 years after 9/11, and we're going to have Muslim imams. That's like a Muslim pastor. We're going to have all kinds of people, Christians, others, come in each week, and there'll be readings and so forth. And the goal is to help us understand Islam better, and also to understand how we as Christians should respond. Now, I wanted nothing. I looked at that and I said, it'll be a cold day in hell before I go spend 3 months studying about Islam. That was the last thing I had any desire to do. And so they kept at me and kept asking me, and they said, please, will you come and be a part of this class? You were an influential pastor in the area, and I think it would just encourage people if you would come. I had no intentions of going. Well, one day I was joking about it with my wife, Oceana, and I said to her, there's just no way this is ever going to happen. And she said, honey, you've been a great husband in many ways. And she said that as a Southern Baptist pastor in the South, you took a real strong stand against racism. In fact, one of the churches I pastored had found out later that some of my leadership had been in the Ku Klux Klan. It explained a whole lot of things. I'd had some guys, threaten me if I let African Americans come into the church. It was constant. There was a lot of stress during that time, and I couldn't understand what was going on. But after I left, I found out from someone that, hey, some of you took on things here bigger than you realized. And we used to have a chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. He named names, and it named some of my key leaders. And my wife said, you fought that battle hard, and you took a strong stand. I was so proud of you when you did that. But when it comes to Muslims, you are a racist in your heart. Wow. When my wife said that, it hit something in me, and I was angry. I was so mad. And if she'd been a man, I probably would have smacked her. I'd have hit her. But it's my wife. You can't hit your wife. You can, but it's not good. Don't hit your wife. And so I was bothered. And so I looked at her, and I thought, I smiled, and I said, Luciana, here's the deal. When Jesus Christ appears at the foot of my bed and tells me to take that class, I'll be glad to do it. But I want to see his ID for confirmation. I want to be sure that it's really Jesus. I want to see his ID for confirmation. I was being a smart butt. Well, time went on. They kept writing me, and I kept saying no. And finally, I thought, well, I don't want to be looked at as anti-progressive, so I'll take the class. What harm can it do? Well, I took the class, and we had to read this book. I learned way more about Islam than I ever wanted to learn. And they brought in imams and different lecturers. And as time went on, I began to realize, there's a lot about Islam I don't understand. There's a lot of things I have been wrong about. And so I'm enlightened. But this is as far as it goes. I'm not going any further. Well, one night in the class, there's about 60 or 70 people, and I was sitting next to the snack table. I always sit next to the snack table because, hey, if things got boring, I can always eat, And the coordinator stood up and said, well, in order to get credit for this class, you have to go make friends with a Muslim. Oh, I wanted to die. I was screaming on the inside. I said, no, 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 no. I don't want to go make friends with a Muslim. And then they said, and you have to go down to the mosque for one of their dawah or their outreach presentations. I wanted to die. I think I would have rather had a colonoscopy than go do that. This was pushing me way outside of my comfort zone. But the battle was, I can tell people, I come from a Southern Baptist background. And we Southern Baptists like to get certificates for what we do. They say, in order to get certificates, you're going to have to go make a friend and go down to the mosque. Well, I wanted to get my certificate. If you come from a Southern Baptist background, especially in the more rural areas, if you mow the church grass, you want to get a certificate. If you take a discipleship course, you get a certificate. I have a file of these certificates. Now, they don't mean anything now, but back then they meant an awful lot. It's just kind of a cultural thing. So I want to get proof that I put my time in and took this class. Well, one day I was sitting on in a Starbucks cafe on Creedmoor Road, and I was really wrestling with this thing. I was struggling hard. You ever had something bother you so much it keeps you awake at night, you just can't sleep? I was sitting there in that cafe, and I was reading the manual for the class. I was looking at the pictures of the women with the hijabs and the men with the beards and the skull caps, and I said, God, this gap between Muslims and Christians is too wide. I'm just a good old Southern boy. Surely you're not calling me to build a bridge between the Christian community and the house of Ishmael. Surely you're not calling me to do something about this. You've got the wrong guy. I can't do this. I really thought, God, I'm so over my head. This is so outside my comfort zone. Surely you're not wanting me to do something about this. Well, I was sitting there in Starbucks, and I thought, well, the very least I can do, coming from my Christian background, I can say a prayer or something. So I looked around to make sure that no one was, watching me. And so I looked around, I had my cappuccino in my hand, I put my head down like this, and I shot up a prayer, and it went something like this. God, if you're calling me to build bridges of love and peace to the house of Ishmael, to the Muslim community, you're going to have to give me a sign so clear I'll never, ever doubt it. Well, boom, as soon as I said that prayer, I felt like all the knots in my stomach and all the tension left me. Now, the tension and the knots didn't leave me because of God's peace falling on me. They left me because I had prayed for a sign. But coming from a Baptist background, we Baptists don't believe in signs. We don't believe in that. So I wasn't expecting God to do a sign. In fact, there's no saying that Baptists believe in miracles until they see one. So I thought I was off the hook. I thought, hey, God's not going to give a sign, so I'm off the hook. I put the ball in God's court. So I was sitting there and went back to reading the manual, feeling quite smug at this time. And then the next thing, this little boy is standing next to my little round table at Starbucks. And I had my magic markers and my highlighters, we're going to call them, laid out. And he was just staring at me like this. He was just staring at me, very attentive. And I thought nothing of it because children were always coming up to the table to borrow highlighters and magic markers and things like that. So he comes up to the table and he says, "Sir, I would like to borrow one of your magic markers." And I said, "Sure, little guy, you can take the blue one." And he said, "No, sir, I prefer the orange one." I said, "Wow, this little guy knows what he wants." I said, "Take the orange one." So this little boy takes it. I kid you not. Remember, I just prayed for a sign. He takes this magic marker. He goes around to the other side of the table, pulls the chair up, little guy, gets on his knees, puts his elbows on the table, and takes the lid off the magic marker. And I kid you not, as God is my witness, he looks me in the eye and says, "Sir, by the way, my name is Omar, and I am 5 years old, and I'm here to teach you some Arabic." And my heart just, it's like I was smitten. And he had a little school uniform, and it was the elementary school of the Islamic Center of Raleigh. And he looks at me and in his little school uniform, and he reaches over and takes out a piece of white paper out of my pad, and he begins to write out the Arabic alphabet, and he sang it at the top of his lungs, just real loud, 5-year-old kid. And I'm sitting there, and literally I felt my knees go weak, and I thought I was going to pass out. I really thought I was going to faint. I was overwhelmed by this. And it was almost like the Holy Spirit was spoke in my ear and said, "You didn't think I could do that, did you?" God had my attention. God had given me this Baptist Christian guy from a Baptist background. He had given me the sign that I had asked. And before I could even think about what Omar was doing, to the left of me, this woman yells out real loud, "Omar, what are you doing? Please leave that poor man alone." And I said, "No, ma'am. Omar can do whatever he wants to do." I had met Jesus like Saul did on the road to Damascus. And just like Jonah was caught in the belly of the whale, God had my attention. I wasn't running or fighting him anymore. I was ready to listen to the sign that he was about to unfold to me through this little Muslim child. Well, Omar writes out the alphabet, and then he says, "Now you write it out." Well, he's 5 years old. It wasn't like, elaborate calligraphy. So I looked at it, and I thought mine looked like his, and I thought it did pretty well. I wrote it out, and he looks at me. 5-year-old kid looks at me and goes, "That is all wrong. This looks horrible. I'm going to have to come around the table and take your hand and guide you through the Arabic alphabet." Omar comes around the table. He takes my hand, and he begins to guide my hand, and together we begin to write out the Arabic alphabet. And as I began to do that, I said to him, "Omar," I said, "Wow, I took 2 years of Hebrew at the Baptist Seminary." And I said, "This sounds a lot like Hebrew, because they're both Semitic languages." And he says, "It's nothing like Hebrew. It's the language of heaven." Oh, wow, okay. So we wrote it out, and by the time, as we began to write that alphabet, by the time we got to the end of it, all my hatred towards Muslims was gone. All that bitterness, all that resentment, all that pride, all that fear, and it was replaced by the love of God. It was replaced with the love of Christ. God put his heart in my heart. And from that moment on, I've loved Muslims. I've not hated them. I've not been afraid of them. And I see them as my friends, my brothers and sisters. And it changed my life completely. All of it was gone. It's never come back. That resentment has never come back. So I go over to Omar's mother and I say, "I'm impressed with Omar. Omar is going to be a great teacher one day." Well, she said, "Well, we're very shocked by this." And I said, "Why?" "Well, Omar is an extremely shy child. He would never go up to a total stranger or a non-family member and do what he did with you. So we've been sitting here trying to figure out what moved or compelled Omar to get up and come over to you and start teaching you the Arabic alphabet." Well, you remember I'd prayed for a sign. And I knew the answer to why. I just wasn't ready to talk about it. So I walked out of that Starbucks that day. I looked up to the sky and I said, "God, I'm in. And if you'll have me for the rest of my life, I'll be a peacemaker in this world between Muslims and Christians. I'll do whatever you ask me to do. I'll invite the Jewish community in. I'll invite others into this beautiful, beloved community if you'll have me." And that's what I've been doing for years. All because God used a little Muslim child to conquer my heart. I hope you will enjoy, if you enjoyed this story and you enjoy my blog. And if you want to get regular weekly updates on my blog, just sign up in the corner up here for those. And God bless you. And if you're interested in potentially becoming a speaker or consultant to your organization, go to my speaker page. Check it out too. God bless you, and you guys have a great day.